All right, good morning YouTube. It's Saturday. We're making sourdough, 100% whole wheat. So the procedure that I've got for this is we take the starter out of the fridge in the morning and then get it warmed up a little bit so that it's kind of a little bit more active. I have a scale here to measure everything out in grams, and I'm gonna post the recipe to GitHub. I'll put it in the notes so that everybody can see it. So get the scale and just tare it so that the bowl is not included. And then my recipe is 525 grams of water. Oops, that's a little bit too much. Okay, so 525 grams of water, so I tare it again. And then the next step would be put 250 grams of starter in there. And this is for the recipe that makes 2 loaves. So I just kind of like stir this up. Get some water in there, or get some air in there. Because it separates in the fridge. So now it looks like that. Perfect. Here, I'll show you what this looks like. Stir it all up real nice. Mix it together. Alright, and then tare it again. Zero it out. And then the next thing would be putting in 700 grams of flour. And this is just 100% whole wheat. It's red wheat, winter wheat. Okay, and then the last step is I put in 1 spoonful of wheat gluten, and that's because I've noticed that with the whole wheat flour that I've been getting, it needs a little bit more protein. But the flour you get might not need that, so that's it for that. And then the next thing would be to stir it all up so that it's incorporated, and it should look like a bit of like a shaggy dough. And then you're finished with that step. The other thing would be to take I take about 3/4 of a cup of whole wheat flour and I mix it into the starter with 3/4 of a cup of water. Mix it all up, let it sit for like, I don't know, a couple hours or a day, and then stick it back in the fridge until next week. That's it. Okay, that's pretty good. It doesn't have to be perfect, it's just everything is kind of evenly moist. Then we cover it, and that can sit for 1 or a couple of hours, depending on what your schedule is for the day and if you feel like messing with it earlier. Oh, perfect. I got 3/4 of a cup of water right here. Just pour this in. usually try to like scrape down the sides too of the starter. Kind of incorporate all that in there. That's it. And then this can sit for a couple hours to kind of digest. And then you can put it back in the fridge and just let it chill for the rest of the week. Here's what the dough looks like right before I start the folding process. After I've mixed everything together, as long as it looks kind of roughly combined, that's good enough. And then I'll cover it, let it sit for about 2 or 3 hours, and then I'll start folding it. Alright, so now that the dough's been sitting for about 2 hours, the next step would be to salt the dough. And for the smaller recipe that makes 2 loaves, I put in 18 grams. And for the larger recipe that makes 3 loaves, I put in 30 grams. So we're just going to weigh it out here. Okay, and take the cover off, just kind of evenly sprinkle it. It doesn't have to be perfect, because we're going to fold it all in and incorporate it anyway. So now roll up the sleeves, grab it, kind of work the salt in. Try to scrape it off the sides. And this video is going to be an amalgamation of a couple different weeks of doing this because I wasn't able to get everything in 1 week. So this is the larger 3 loaf recipe. And there's going to be some of the video that's going to be a smaller 2 loaf recipe, but the process is the same. So I keep folding it like this until you start seeing the dough kind of crack like that, and then that's about as much as it can handle. We're trying to stretch the gluten out and develop it. So for this particular part, we just want to make sure that the salt is kind of incorporated nicely, because if not, you'll be biting into it and there'll be a part that won't be salty and a part that will be way too salty. So there's a little bit here on the bottom still. Pull that in. Yeah, so this is what it looks like now. And then we'll keep folding this for another, I think, 5 or 6 times until it gets kind of a smooth, silky look to it. And then we're all good to do the proofing step. Oh, I forgot to mention that in between each one of these folds, I put the lid back on and then let it rest for 30 minutes. All right, so every 30 minutes, the thing to do now is to take the lid off and take the dough and fold it in like this. Just pull it in and push it. Turn it, pull it in, push it. Turn it, pull it in, push it. And I do that every 30 minutes for about 2.5 hours. right, so now that all the folding's done, the next step would be to break it up into 3 separate containers that I have here. 1, 2, 3, and I've lined them all with tea towels. And depending on how exacting you want to get with this, you could take the dough out and put it on the scale, weigh it. So this weighs 2,250 grams. So we could take that and divide it by 3. I think we usually end up with about 750 a piece. So I'll take my dough blade, cut it up. Yeah. And then what we do now is we take it and we kind of stretch it like this. So everything's kind of even, and then put it in your bowl, cover it up so the bugs don't get to it, fruit flies and whatever. Okay, and then that's one. A little off there. This dough can be deceptive. It's kind of hard to see. Sometimes it looks like it's an even amount, but it's actually not. So sometimes I don't do this thing where I cut them up. The only advantage to not doing that, to not cutting it up, is that sometimes when you cut it up and put pieces back into it, it makes a pocket when it's rising. And when you bake it, you end up with a void. So if you can, try to keep it all as one piece. Okay, so that's what it should look like, nice and taut. Put them in the bowls with the stretched side down. So I'm going to take these, and since it's winter, I'm going to put these in the oven with the pilot light on. Show you. And these are going to stay in there until they double in size, and you know, it depends on the temperature and whatnot, but I've noticed it takes, I want to say roughly 6 hours. So the hard part's done. And then after this is finished, you can either put them in the refrigerator overnight, or what I've been doing lately, since it's cold in the sunroom, is put them in the sunroom as long as it's above freezing, and let them sit overnight, and then we bake them in the morning. Alrighty, so it's been, I think, about 5 hours. Let's see what they look like. I just took them out of the oven with the pilot light on. Yeah, they've probably doubled, maybe a little bit more than that. So I'm gonna say these are good, especially this one. This one is practically full already. That might even be too much. So I'm gonna say these are good. Whoops. Try and get the towel back over them so they don't dry out. And I'm gonna put them in the fridge, even though I was talking about putting them in the sunroom. But my wife nicely cleared me a shelf. Kindly cleared me a shelf. So we'll see if we can fit all these on there. There's one. There's two. And there's three. It's the next morning. This is my cooking cast iron pot. We're gonna preheat this at 450 for 30 minutes so it gets nice and warm, nice and hot. All right, now that the pot is preheated, I'm gonna get ready to transfer the dough. I'm going to cut some parchment paper in the shape of a plate. And this is to help transfer the dough. Not necessarily because I don't want it to stick. So we need something to put the dough on. So let's grab the dough out of the fridge and then we'll transfer it. So this is what it looks like. It could have risen a little bit more, but I think this is fine. It's a bit of a guessing game how far to let it rise, because the sourdough is a little bit different every time. So there we go. And just be careful. It's very easy to burn yourself doing this. And then we'll bake this for 30 minutes with the lid on, and then another like 5 or 6 minutes with the lid off. All right, it's been 30 minutes. Time to take the lid off. I put 6 minutes on there usually, and this is just to brown the crust. All right, there's the finished product. Smells nice. We just repeat this procedure for the other loaves, and that's it. Hope you enjoyed. Here's what I was talking about before with those voids. That's what happens if you put it together in pieces. The crumb structure looks pretty good on this.